A lot of people carry a quiet anxiety that they're falling behind something important. They don't always say it out loud. They don't always frame it clearly. It shows up as restlessness. There's a sense they should be doing more. There's a vague pressure that doesn't point anywhere specific. They often call this avoiding their purpose. That framing creates tension immediately. Purpose sounds urgent. It sounds like something that's waiting. It sounds like something you can miss. So people start looking for it the way they'd look for a destination. They ask questions like, what am I meant to be doing? Or, why can't I commit to the thing I know I should do? Those questions assume there's a clear directive being ignored. What I see much more often is something subtler happening. The system isn't avoiding purpose, it's protecting coherence. Purpose isn't just an activity, it's an organizing principle. When purpose shifts, it rearranges how energy flows, how time is spent, how relationships are structured. That kind of rearrangement isn't neutral. It disrupts agreements. It alters identity. It changes what makes sense. So before purpose becomes actionable, the system checks for stability. Not consciously, automatically. If acting on something would fracture too many internal or relational structures at once, movement slows. That slowdown gets interpreted as procrastination. In reality, it's calibration. People often say they feel blocked. Blocked implies something pushing back. What's usually happening is a lack of internal permission. Permission doesn't come from desire alone. It comes from alignment between identity, capacity, and consequence. Someone can clearly sense what they're drawn toward and still feel unable to move. That isn't confusion, it's intelligence. There's often loyalty involved. Loyalty to family systems, to roles that created safety, to versions of self that were necessary at one point. Those loyalties don't disappear just because awareness increases. They dissolve when their function completes. Until then, purpose remains abstract. People try to force it into form. They set goals. They create timelines. They pressure themselves into action. That pressure usually produces shallow movement. They take steps that look aligned but feel oddly draining. They commit and then quietly resent the commitment. They start and stop, then blame themselves for the inconsistency. What's actually happening is that the system hasn't consented to the cost. Purpose always has a cost. Not financial, structural. It costs you an identity that no longer fits. It costs you certain forms of approval. It costs you the ability to stay ambiguous. Until the system is ready to pay that cost, purpose stays theoretical. This is why some people can articulate their calling with precision and still feel stuck. Clarity arrived before readiness. Readiness is built through lived completion. Completion doesn't always look meaningful from the outside. It can look like repetition, like boredom, like doing something well past the point of inspiration. Those phases exhaust the identity that's currently in place. Once that identity is exhausted, movement becomes simpler. People often describe this as finally having permission. Nothing external changed. Internal resistance dissolved. Purpose didn't appear, it became livable. This is also why comparing timelines is so disorienting. You see someone else acting decisively and assume they're braver or clearer. What you don't see is the internal work that was completed before the action. Action is the visible part of a much longer process. If you feel drawn toward something but unable to commit, pay attention to what feels at stake. What would change if you actually followed through? Who would you disappoint? What version of yourself would no longer make sense? Those questions often reveal why movement hasn't happened yet. The answers aren't problems, they're information. People often try to bypass this by reframing purpose as passion. Passion feels lighter, more optional. That helps temporarily. Eventually, the same tension returns. Because purpose isn't about enthusiasm, it's about orientation. Orientation settles when the system knows where it belongs. Belonging isn't always social, it's internal. When someone belongs to themselves, purpose becomes obvious. Until then, it feels distant. This is where impatience causes harm. People push themselves into actions their identity can't yet support. They burn energy stabilizing choices that came too early. They confuse exhaustion without commitment. True alignment doesn't require constant reinforcement. Once purpose is integrated, effort decreases. Decisions feel cleaner. Energy sustains itself. Doubt quiets down without being argued away. My name's Nemo, and I help people like you access past lives and contact their higher self in 3 hours or less. I say that here because people who come to that work are often already aware of a deeper orientation. They sense it clearly. They just haven't reorganized around it yet. The work doesn't give them a purpose. It helps clarify what's already been asking for space. When purpose integrates, it doesn't feel like a revelation. It feels like relief. Relief from pretending to care about things that no longer matter. Relief from forcing motivation. Relief from negotiating with yourself. Life doesn't suddenly become easy, it becomes coherent. If you're feeling stalled right now, it may be because something important hasn't finished completing. Completion takes time. It asks for patience with phases that don't look productive. It asks for honesty about what you're still loyal to. It asks for tolerance of ambiguity. None of that means you're doing anything wrong. It means your system is refusing to move before it's ready. That refusal isn't failure, it's restraint. Purpose doesn't need to be chased. It emerges when the identity that would live it is ready to exist. Until then, paying attention to what drains you, what no longer fits, and what you're tired of defending is enough. Those signals point forward without demanding action. Let them. The movement will come when it can be sustained.